We found ourselves assembled around the Christmas tree at my brother Todd's house. The calendar marked Christmas Eve, the customary occasion for our family to come together and revel in the festivities. Having indulged in a sumptuous turkey dinner, the dining room table was now adorned with an array of desserts. Despite their tempting appearance, the sweet treats remained untouched. Some family members sipped on coffee or beer, while others cradled wine glasses. "Let the Secret Santa festivities begin," Todd declared, entering the room with a stocking in hand, containing numbers inscribed on small pieces of paper. "Just a reminder, folks, you can only choose a present if you've brought one along. Anyone who skipped out on the gift-giving doesn't get to play. Eyes on you, Jonathan." Casting a gaze toward his shoes, my cousin muttered something indecipherable. It appeared to be a well-practiced maneuver, reminiscent of his attempt from the year before, aiming to secure a complimentary gift without the hassle of buying one. That's just Jonathan being Jonathan. Todd circulated the room with the stocking, and each person plunged their hand inside to retrieve a number. But there was an exception: Jonathan. He reclined, observing everything with a disgruntled expression while sipping on a beer. I observed everyone extracting their numbers. My aunt and Uncle B picked out their numbers, both sporting irritating grins, followed by a loud lip-smacking as my aunt sipped wine from her glass. My Aunt Amy had relocated my grandmother to a nursing home, seized her house, and suspicions lingered that she was depleting Grandma's funds. Sadly, there was no concrete evidence, as Aunt Amy had cunningly obtained Grandma's signature on a power of attorney form before her official dementia diagnosis. In simpler terms, Aunt Amy wasn't exactly a saintly figure. Uncle Anthony extracted a number, then proceeded to down his beer, punctuating the act with a resounding belch. Anthony's transgressions were both numerous and severe. He engaged in fraudulent activities, exploiting both individuals and government disability programs. However, his rap sheet extended far beyond, encompassing a troubling mix of alcoholism, womanizing, gambling addiction, and a history of DUI arrests. And that's just scratching the surface of what can be openly discussed. My cousin Brad's life had been a revolving door of jail stints since he hit 16, primarily for engaging in violent altercations at clubs and bars. He casually picked a number from the stocking, his 5 weighty gold rings catching the glint of Christmas tree lights. Brad once shared with me that he adorned himself with those rings as a substitute for illegal brass knuckles. After all, there was no law against decking someone with an array of rings. The amount of grievances could continue endlessly, but the crux of the matter was that everyone encircling that Christmas tree had their share of unsavory qualities. Mutual disdain permeated the air. My family harbored animosity, not only towards each other but also directed at me, each for their unique set of reasons. Drawing the number 1 from the stocking, Mark, another of my cousins, secured the coveted first turn. Excitement gleamed in his eyes as he unwrapped a gift, unveiling a Henkel knife set, exactly what he had been hoping for. Clinging to the box protectively, he surveyed the room cautiously, eyeing potential culprits who might try to snatch his prized possession. The dynamics shifted when, during his turn 2 rounds later, his sister Paris clandestinely swiped the coveted knife set. While part of the game's strategy, Mark couldn't hide his frustration, especially when confronted with the replacement gift, a gently used Danielle steelbook that paled in comparison to the allure of the original knife set. In a burst of anger, Mark trembled with disbelief, demanding, "Who the hell brought this?" He seethed. It was supposed to be a $50 value. No one was willing to confess to the deed, and so the game pressed on. Mark, now flushed and seemingly on the brink of fury, held back from uttering another word about the incident. I scanned the room in an attempt to detect any telltale emotions on people's faces, but they all maintained stoic expressions. A collective silence persisted, with no one owning up to bringing the used book, likely plucked from a dusty home bookshelf in a bid to save $50. As the game unfolded, there were more perplexing presents. While some adhered to the expected value, a few were conspicuously cheaper than usual, including an ice pick, a hammer, and a rusty old saw. Despite suspicious glances exchanged across the room, no one was willing to admit to contributing these peculiar items. The game persisted until its conclusion, leaving an atmosphere thick with tension that could be cut with a knife. Mark surged to his feet, disdainfully discarding the Danielle steelbook to the floor. His hand pointed accusatorily at Paris, as he continued to tremble with a potent mix of rage, exacerbated by the effects of both anger and alcohol, painting his face a furious shade of red. His mouth opened. "Give me back my knife set, you stupid bitch." But before he could complete the sentence, the lights abruptly went out, plunging the scene into chaos. Amidst the darkness, chaos ensued, which included the shattering of glass, a woman's scream, the crash of light bulbs, and the crushing of tree ornaments underfoot. The room echoed with the unmistakable sounds of scuffling and fighting. Another scream pierced the air, this time from a man, and I desperately attempted to navigate my way out of the room, stumbling over both people and furniture. In my haste, I collided with something that, at first glance, I mistook for a couch. It turned out to be the back of someone's head, and as they crumpled to the floor, I accidentally stepped on their hand, the audible crunch of bones beneath my feet echoing as I sought an escape. "Ow! What the heck?" my uncle's voice erupted. I plunged into the hall and found myself in a heap of shoes, realizing I was right beside the front door. A glimmer of hope. I could easily exit and call the police. Yet, my optimism deflated when I tried the door handle, only to discover it was locked. A gunshot rang out, prompting me to duck and crawl on all fours in a desperate attempt to find cover. It dawned on me that the basement offered the safest refuge. From there, I could attempt the back door or consider making a break through a window. As I sprinted down the stairs, the screams and agonizing howls reverberated, revealing a nightmarish scene of people attacking each other. I had often jestingly claimed that my family might turn violent during the holidays, but I never truly believed it would come to pass. It became painfully clear that I didn't know them as well as I actually thought. Upon reaching the basement, I urgently checked the back door, discovering it also locked and there was no key in the lock. It was evident that someone had orchestrated this chaos, but the question remained, who? Was it Mark, Aunt Amy, Cousin Brad, or even my uncle? Any of them seemed plausible suspects, yet none felt entirely right either. To my dismay, the windows were also securely locked, and to add to the perplexity, they appeared to be sealed with peculiar candy cane-colored nails. Upon closer inspection, I realized they were indeed candy canes, sharpened to points and hastily driven into the wooden window panes at odd angles, as if done in a fit of rage. Things were becoming increasingly bizarre. My family was engaged in a deadly conflict, and there I was, seeking refuge in the basement, paralyzed by fear. I had to take action. I needed to put an end to this madness. Christmas was meant to be a time for families to gather and express their love, not a time for bloodshed. Silently, I ascended the stairs, hugging the outer edge to avoid creaking sounds. My cell phone, now in my hand, illuminated the path with its flashlight function. A noise emanated from the kitchen to my left, a choking sound, and I witnessed a harrowing sight. My cousin Paris hung from the fridge, just like a stocking above a Christmas morning fireplace, secured by knives driven through her limbs and torso into the fridge door. She dangled in agony, blood streaming from her mouth and eyes as her attempts to call for help proved futile. "Mark, you bastard, come out now?" Suddenly, his voice echoed from behind me. "So, you brought that Danielle Steele book, huh?" he bellowed, charging at me from the shadows. "You stingy piece of garbage." With a small knife gripped tightly in his hand, Mark lunged at me, slicing my arm that held the phone. I fumbled, dropping my only source of light. The phone landed with the light directed upward, illuminating the kitchen in a stark, white glow. "That wasn't me. I brought the drone," I protested, desperately searching for a means of defense. In my frantic search for a weapon, my eyes landed on the one embedded in Paris's abdomen and retrieved it, which prompted a painful howl from her. "Fucking hell," she screamed. "I'm so sorry, Paris." I apologized sincerely. Mark lunged at me with the small knife in hand, slashing the air, maintaining distance. In response, I kicked outward, connecting with his gut and sending him sprawling backward, crashing to the floor. "I don't want to hurt you, Mark. It's fucking Christmas, for crying out loud. What are we actually doing here? We should be enjoying Christmas like all the other families in town. Instead, we're here killing the whole lot of us." It seemed like Mark had finally listened, but he remained unresponsive. Slow to move, he seemed to have injured himself somehow. Then he gave out a groan and rolled onto his back. The small knife, which had been tightly clutched in his hand moments earlier, was now embedded in his chest. He tugged at it desperately, then abruptly stopped due to the pain it inflicted upon him. I retrieved my phone from the floor and paused for a moment, observing my Mark's final moments. A twinge of remorse hit me as he took his last breath. Then, I moved on to the living room, where the sounds of a dwindling scuffle lingered. Someone slipped into the shadows, and I caught a glimpse of an ugly Christmas sweater before they vanished around a corner. It was Brad. My gaze shifted downward to the lifeless body of my Aunt Amy. A bunch of cable ties had been twisted round her neck. Moments later, a commotion erupted in the dining room as someone intercepted Brad. Someone had been lying in wait, and he crashed to the ground. A familiar voice and the eerie sound of the Christmas tree being felled emanated from the darkness. My Uncle Mike began to laugh like a maniac, and I realized he was the culprit, sawing off Brad's head with a rusty chainsaw, the very one he had received as a gift. "Found it buried in your grandma's garage, didn't you?" he raged. "Should have disowned you when I had the chance, you filthy piece of shit." A fountain of blood spewed from Brad's neck, but a loud bang cut through the chaos, and my Uncle Mike collapsed off him. Someone had shot him. I swept my phone in every direction, its light revealing the aftermath of our family Christmas gathering, turned into a scene of horror. Everyone I knew my whole life lay lifeless, surrounded by pools of coagulated blood. Their faces, frozen in expressions of terror and hatred. Everyone was gone, that is, except one person. That person was none other than Jonathan. He emerged from the darkness and chuckled. "It was you all along? You finally pieced it all together, hey cuz. But why? We were still a family despite our issues." "You call this a family? We all despised each other. It's better this way. And besides, we get to enjoy all the presents for ourselves. Even that Danielle Steele book, it's all ours." "You crazy fucker, John. I was always the brains of this family cuz..." Then Jonathan halted mid-sentence, emitting a strangled sound. "What's wrong, John? Are you all right?" Then I noticed the sharpened end of a candy cane protruding from his chest. Jonathan collapsed, the candy cane's curled tip visible from his back, stained with blood near the entry wound. A squeaky voice laughed from the darkness. "Who the hell is that?" I asked, growing more frightened than ever. The laughter sounded peculiar and high-pitched, unlike any family member. Little footsteps scurried away, heading towards the basement stairs. Intrigued, I followed whatever it was. As I stepped into the basement, the torchlight from my phone flickered and vanished completely as the battery died, leaving me in darkness. The door at the top slammed shut, making me jump. "Who's down here?" I called out, holding the chef knife I had forgotten was in my hand. "You better answer me. I'm not messing around." A high-pitched laughter erupted, first from one corner, then another. Dozens of little voices, all giggling merrily in the darkness, surrounded me. Dozens of little grins, too small to be adults and too grown up for children, haunted me. Elves. Not elves, surely. Above, the roof echoed with the noise of hooves, 32 in total. A pair of boots trudged across the icy tiles, approaching the chimney. The fireplace, only a few feet away, caught my attention as someone slid down it, getting closer. A plump man in a red suit emerged from the fireplace, his jacket and pants lined with white fur. A red hat with a white puff adorned his head, and beneath his grin lay the biggest, whitest beard I'd ever seen. He took a step forward, his intentions unclear. Behind him, the fireplace roared to life with an inferno.
Oh! Your family displayed quite a lack of niceness this year, Jimmy."
Terrified, I braced for an attack, expecting him to finish the job. Instead, he surprised me.
"You were the one person not on my naughty list. Your cousin Mark, so jealous he was ready to kill his own sister for a knife set. Your Uncle Mike, so drunk and cruel he killed his own son out of anger over money. And your other cousin Jonathan, so greedy he wouldn't even buy a present for the gift exchange."
"So, you're the one who orchestrated this whole setup and killed my entire family?"
"I would never do that. I sent my elves to spy. They were the elves on the shelf spying on all of you tonight. You should thank them, really. Your cousin Jonathan was about to shoot you in the face. There were so many of you, it was tricky working out who was who. If I'd have been Santa about 2 decades ago, I would have bought your parents and aunt and uncle a goddamn TV.
I dropped the knife and fell to my knees. Damn, they're all dead, I said through tears. They were a bunch of jerks, yeah, but they were my family. Who the hell am I going to spend Christmas with now? A red-gloved hand comforted me, wiping away my tears.
Ho, 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 don't worry, son. I'll handle it all. I'll manage everything.
And so, on Christmas Day, I found myself alone, decorating my own tree. But not entirely alone. You see, that was my gift from Santa. As I carefully hung each decoration, I couldn't afford to break them. These delicate glass orbs couldn't be replaced. I needed to safeguard them. My Aunt Amy pounded on the glass, terrified in her ugly Christmas sweater. Her tiny voice begged me to let her out. My other family members sat in their glass globes, watching me intently. So guys, which present should I unwrap first? There's plenty? I queried my family encased in their Christmas ornament prisons. Santa mentioned I was exceptionally good this year. Merry Christmas,